So the last theory we want to talk about is the objective list theory, which is most famously represented by Nussbaum and Sen. And this holds that happiness consists of a human life that achieves certain things from a list of worthwhile pursuits. So you're given a list, and this is supposed to be an objective list, which somebody, let's say Nussbaum, has created. And this, by fulfilling this list, you achieve a happy life, and by missing items in this list, you fail to that extent to achieve a happy life. So this is a version of, you could say, Aristotelianism or eudaimonia, but instead of looking at your subjective wishes and desires, you have an objective list, and everybody is supposed to fulfill the same list. Now, the way to make this convincing, of course, is to choose a list that is as globally inclusive as possible, that includes as many of the basic features of humanity and human dignity as possible, so that it seems convincing that if you fulfill this list you will be happy, and conversely, if you miss items from this list you will be unhappy to that extent. So now let's have a look at what Martha Nussbaum includes in this list. This is called the Capabities approach. The idea is that the human life has to have particular capabilities, particular potential to fulfill particular requirements. And if you have the potential to fulfill these requirements, then your life is good to that extent. So one capability is life itself, being able to live to the end of a human life of normal length, not dying prematurely or before one's life is so reduced as to be not worth living. Of course, this you can see Nussbaum is a modern thinker. This particularly is meant for euthanasia debates, to be able to live your life that is not reduced so much as to make it not worth living. In that sense, then you could say that euthanasia is morally right, because it does not take away any capability that is valuable. Body health, being able to have good health, including reproductive health, to be adequately nourished, to have adequate shelter. And body integrity, being able to move freely from place to place, to be secure against violent assault. The capabilities list goes beyond the merely bodily features. You have sense, imagination, and thought, being able to use the senses to imagine, to think and reason, and to do these things in a truly human way, in a way informed and cultivated by adequate education, including but not limited to literacy, mathematics and scientific training. So this is also what the G&H in Bhutan was examining, right? The ability of people to connect to their culture, to be literate, to have a basic understanding of science. Being able to use imagination and thought in connection with experiencing and producing works of literary musical quality. So something like creativity, right? Being able to exercise one's creativity. And freedom of expression in political and artistic speech, being able to have pleasurable experiences and to avoid non-beneficial pain. What is non-beneficial pain? Non-beneficial pain, of course, is pain that is inflicted to you by your doctor, for example, or your dentist. You don't have the claim to be able to avoid every kind of pain. Of course, your doctor can inflict pain on you in the course of a treatment without taking away any of your human capabilities, because this is beneficial pain. This is pain that will lead to a better life afterwards, right? So there's an exemption there for that. Emotions, being able to have attachments to things and people outside ourselves, to love those who love and care for us, to grieve at their absence, and so on. Practical reason, being able to form a conception of the good and to engage in critical reflection about the planning of one's life. Affiliation, being able to live with and toward others, to recognize and show concern for other humans, to engage in various forms of social interaction. Protecting the freedom of assembly and political speech, for example, falls into this. Having the social basis of self-respect and non-humiliation, being able to be treated as a dignified being whose worth is equal to that of others. Other species, being able to live with concern for and in relation to animals, plants, and the world of nature. This is interesting because for Nussbaum, not having the ability to have concern for other species and nature is taking away from your capability to be truly human, right? This is interesting. The concern for the environment is part of what makes us truly human. So this is one point where the capabilities list becomes less convincing, perhaps, right? It feels like Nussbaum is somehow forced to include this here, but it's not entirely clear why this would be a human capability that is worth of protection, to be able to live with concern for animals, plants, and the world of nature. Are humans who live in shopping malls, like many, people in Hong Kong do, are they deficient as humans in some sense? They lack something, but is it something really that needs to be protected? We can ask. Nature needs to be protected, yes, but is the protection of nature really part of what needs protection inside a human being? This we can question, right? Play, being able to laugh, to play, to enjoy recreational activities, yes. Control over one's environment, political and material environment, having property, having employment, having the right to seek employment, and so on. So now if you look at Nussbaum's list, this is a very impressive collection of things. But of course you can criticize the list, right? Think for a moment perhaps how you can criticize this list. What can we say against Nussbaum's list of capabilities? And then come back and continue this video. So one obvious criticism is that any objective list of criteria is likely to not pay sufficient attention to subjective preferences. You can say some of these things, like having concern for animals. Perhaps some people really don't like animals. So are they deficient humans? Are they less good humans because they don't like animals? Some people don't like artistic expression. They don't feel like they want to express themselves artistically. Are they therefore seriously deficient humans? Are humans required to write poetry or to make art? Or can they be exempted? So all these lists have the problem, right? If you say the list has to be fulfilled, then you seem to impose a particular norm on all people that all have to fulfill. And it seems also that this list, the particular list, is pretty demanding. Most people on Earth probably don't have all these capabilities, right? If you see, it includes democracy, it includes employment, it includes freedom of employment, it includes freedom to own property, it includes education, it includes all kinds of, emotional relations with others and family life and animals and nature. And if you take all these things together, this seems to be quite an elitist view of what an ideal human being is. So, Martha Nussbaum and people like her, philosophers who live in a Western country with material affluence, are perhaps able to strive for this kind of humanity. But you can easily see how a farmer in some poor country in Africa is probably cut off from much of this, right? And will not have these abilities. And now the question is, what do you do with that? Do you say the list is wrong? Or do you say what probably Nussbaum would say, our world is wrong? This is indeed the list of what would be desirable. And if most humans cannot achieve this list, then most humans have a problem that needs to be solved, right? So you can hold on to the list and see it as a criticism of how humanity works at this point where most humans don't have all these capabilities, and say yes, but they should. Or you can say perhaps there's nothing wrong with most humans, perhaps it's just a feature of human life that we have some capabilities and we don't have others, and most people are fine with that, and Nussbaum's list is just too demanding, right? So there are both sides how you can judge that. And yeah, of course, then you can also question who even made this list. Why is Nussbaum the authority to make such a list, and who says that these criteria are just the right one, and what about any number of other criteria I could mention? For example, Nussbaum doesn't mention exploration of the ocean or exploration of space. Why should this not be a human capability that is worth protecting and pursuing? That people should have the right to explore space or to explore the deep ocean, or any number of other things, right? Connection to technology. Perhaps every human being should learn how to program a computer, because this is arguably more important to have a good connection to computers in our world than to have a connection to animals. So perhaps being educated in computer programming should be on this list. It just happens that Nussbaum is not interested in that, so it's not on the list. So you could ask, why is Nussbaum the authority to give us this list, and why, or Sen from whom this list, the idea of this list originally comes, and why should there not be other items on this list that are entirely different?